Mike, because that's one thing I didn't get to see.
On my phone.
Oh. I thought you could see it here.
No, you don't see him in here.
Oh, well, no, you told me.
I'm telling you. Okay, so I kind of understand the whole, like, Chad waiting thing, because I'm pretty sure there's, like, a 7-second delay between when I hit that button and we go until YouTube turns on. It's like 7 to 10 seconds, because I'm in there right now. We're not on yet.
Maybe it's still trying to get authorizations or something. What was that?
25 seconds is how long that took.
It's not bad.
I don't know. Maybe it's just a YouTube thing. I have no idea. Welcome in. We're waiting for everybody to join. Apparently this thing drags a little bit, so we're just gonna get right into it. All right. Now I promise one of these days. I don't know what that last thing was.
I think you and I go to the same dentist, Mike.
Maybe. One of these days I'm going to quit messing with that intro. Just leave it.
Oh, Jesus.
All right. Well, welcome in, everybody. I just went through puberty again. I choke on the last one, and now I can't stop doing this on this one.
Welcome, everybody.
Bad day today. Welcome in, everybody, to the MHRT Podcast. We go live every Thursday at 7, 6, 5, and 4. You pick whichever side of the country you want to put those numbers to. I don't care. It's not 4 Eastern, no. I'll tell you that.
Wow.
You can catch us live on Twitter at MHRT Podcast, YouTube, Mile High Roundtable. Like and subscribe. Also, you can catch us on Facebook, MHRT Podcast. All right. So this is going to be kind of like a second half of the first one. Like last week, we built the offense. We looked at who we thought would stay and if they'd stay in that position or if we'd bring some people in. This one, we're going to cover the defense. And this one is going to be a little bit more because there's a whole lot more questions on defense than there is on offense. But there's also other news we can go into, like, and I know it's been talked to death, but like, the Von Miller situation. I mean, right now it's up in the air on what's going to happen. It doesn't look like there's going to be any like major punishment. I mean, since his fiance, ex-fiance, ex-girlfriend, like whoever she is, came out and basically said there was no domestic physical violence. So, obviously there's still an investigation, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be legal punishment. But
I just don't know, though. I mean, there's nothing being said, so it's a wait and see.
Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't seem that way, but we don't know what's going to happen in the investigation. We don't know what that means for him with the team, him with his contract, him with Paton. I had no idea. There's not really much else to cover on Von Miller. So, I mean, do we need to go in more on it?
I mean, pretty much, to be honest with you, I think all of Broncos country, they're just holding their breath because they're anxious to see what George Paton is going to do in terms of, who he's going to bring back, who he's going to cut, who he's going to trade, what the draft is looking like. So, I mean, there's a lot on the table. And, if it's one thing that Broncos fans cannot really stand or hold off for, it's the offseason, because as soon as football's gone after the Super Bowl, we already want to see football again. So sometimes we go back and relive previous Broncos games, or we do what we can. But this whole thing with Von Miller seems to be, in my opinion anyway, I think it's starting to lose steam a little bit in terms that it's not going in the direction that we thought of, as in terms of, Von getting suspended from the league or Von getting arrested or anything damning. So far, So I just hope that whenever this is over and he gives out a statement and he says, he's sorry that this ever got out and whatnot, that it can help the GM make his decision a little bit easier and kind of help smooth things over the transition into next season. Because I personally, I love Von Miller. I love the leadership and the energy that he brings to this defense, and the fact that we had to see what life is going to be without Von Miller one day for a whole season. It sucks. It really does. And, and I give Malik Reed a lot of credit trying to fill in those shoes that he's probably going to have to do one day, or whoever decides to come in for his place once Von Miller retires. But I just think that Broncos country needs to be patient. They just need to let the front office do their jobs. And hopefully this whole thing smooths over and, it can be back to business in September.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you've noticed that Christy is not in the podcast today. She's a busy woman. She's got things to do and wasn't able to jump on. So, hi, Christy. Thanks for being in and watching. Now, before we get into defense, we do have, I believe, two things that we should cover. One is the Chargers' new head coach, and two is the possibility of Bieniemy going to the Texans. Now, obviously, that's not a sure thing. But like we were talking about before we started in the podcast, it looks like that the Texans are waiting on Bieniemy to at least, I don't know, do a second interview or a third, or if that's their guy, I don't know. But Bieniemy's still out there, and there's only one team left, the Texans, because who just announced? Was that the Lions that just announced?
Yeah. Yeah. They hired
Eagles.
Oh,
the Eagles are working on hiring the guy from the Colts. What's his name?
Sriracha. Yeah, offensive coordinator.
That's not it, but I'm going to call it Sriracha.
Mm-hmm. Sriracha's fine. Close enough.
No, but I mean,
Frank Reich Jr., I think.
We were concerned that we were going to get like a Dable or a Bieniemy head coach for the Chargers, which would be terrible for the Broncos. Those are two potentially really good head coaches that you don't want going to an AFC division rival.
Mm-hmm.
We got Vic's protege, though.
Yeah, who did they hire?
Staley.
Brandon Staley.
Yeah, Staley.
Woo!
Yeah. He was our linebackers coach and then defensive coordinator for Rams. They had a good defense, but they also have ridiculous, they have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. So, I mean, and then yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not as worried as I would have been with Dable, because I think the worst thing that could have happened was someone that is good at developing a quarterback like Josh Allen, who is Justin Herbert, who is very much like Josh Allen. That would have been real trouble. But we'll see. He might be. He moved up the ranks real quick, so that's the only thing that worries me.
Yeah,
the only thing I could wish for the Chargers would have been if they would have hired the get punched and bite kneecaps coach. But
I don't want that. Bad. I don't want our kneecaps bitten off, like you said they would do. So
the Lions actually hired a real
pass. Yeah,
I actually talked about this with my co-host Rich, and we personally agreed that the reason why Brandon Staley's resume looked so good was because he inherited a defense that Wade Phillips did a really good job building in Los Angeles with the Rams. And like Marcus said, he had Aaron Donald, he had Jalen Ramsey, he had a revived Leonard Floyd. So he had all these really good players in that defense. So it's really surprising that the Chargers went. Would you call Anthony Lynn an offensive coordinator type of head coach?
Yeah,
he was.
Because I think
running back.
Okay, so I think that they flipped the switch, and they're probably going to see if they can improve their defense in terms of, because they already have their golden goose in Justin Herbert, so they're probably figure that they need to restructure their defense so they can try to be more formidable again. But the problem is that Chris Harris Jr., I love Strap Harris. I love what he did for Denver, but he's on a bit of a decline. I don't think he's going to be as great as he was before in his prime. And Darian Stewart, who's a really awesome player, just cannot seem to stay healthy. So the Chargers are going to need a lot of help on defense in terms of trying to turn that ship around. So who knows if Brandon Staley is the guy to do it.
Darian Stewart's on the Chargers?
Sorry, I messed up.
James?
Derwin James. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Like he came out of retirement?
Oh, my God.
Derwin James. I get him confused. My mistake.
Melvin Ingram is also on his way out there, too. So their defense is going to be diminishing right in time for a spark on coordinating.
Yeah. They have an anti-Melvin's policy in the Chargers these days.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, and the only reason I bring it up is because there is still the potential that the Texans could hire Bieniemy, who obviously everybody knows he's on the Chiefs. Not saying that they will. In my mind, yeah, me too. I mean, in my mind, the two leading candidates of any NFL team should be Bieniemy and Brady, who are still available, or Dable, but they didn't interview him. So,
I think one of the main things. I think one of the main things that people don't think about is also that it can come from a like a coach's perspective where they might not want to. They can go and interview, but then they might decide that it's not for them and pull out. I mean, that's happened many times, and this whole situation that's going on with Houston is just not appealing to. You have no one on your roster besides Deshaun Watson, and who doesn't want to be there. So, I mean, he hasn't technically asked for a trade yet, but I mean, you don't. Like how is that appealing for a coach to come in and want to be able to deal with this? So it's kind of a weird situation.
Okay. Yeah. So let's spin it this way. So Deshaun Watson wants out of Houston, right? Everybody's saying like, there's no way that we would give up what the Texans are looking for Watson. What would you be willing to give up for Watson?
4 first rounds.
No, nothing else, just 4 first rounds?
They can have Drew.
What's your limit? Like, where will you go and then not go any farther?
I would go 4 first rounds in Drew Lock, or maybe Justin Simmons, because that's a. I mean, but they would want a younger player. They wouldn't want to deal with a new contract that they have to put on there. So it'd have to be a younger player like Jerry Jeudy or Noah Fant, which I wouldn't like, but I mean, I would, because I mean, you look at it, man. Like it's 4 first rounds. There's still 6 other rounds. I mean, minimum that I mean, plus other picks that you might pick up for those next 4 years. And I mean, it's 4 first round players that you're like, or maybes for a proven young Deshaun Watson. Like, I mean, not even a question for me. That's going to be that's over a decade of your quarterback situation, a top 5-7 QB for 10 years. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think the highest I was going to go was 2 firsts and a second, and Von Miller and Drew Lock.
They don't want Von's contract. See, I would go 3 firsts.
But they've got Watson's contract.
I don't think Von Miller is really a trade bait right now. He's not. He's in the tail end. He's coming off a season-ending injury. He's got $18 million on cap that someone would have to take up. I don't like if we let Von go, someone's gonna pick him up for. I mean, Vetman maybe.
We haven't even gotten into it yet, Rich. Hold on, jeez.
You know what?
Boggin said Justin Simmons, and I look at the comments, and
then there it is.
I agree, Boggin.
I'm gonna have to disagree with all 3 of you, and I'm sorry. I think that Deshaun Watson is way too expensive. Don't get me wrong; he's a great player. He's amazing. He's everything that he got paid for. But I just don't think that what Denver would have to give up, whether it's 4 picks, whether it's 3 picks, whether it's Von, whether it's whoever it is, I just don't think that the risk is worth it. Frankly, because I don't really trust Pat Shurmur. Pat Shurmur has not really given anybody real reason to even have another season in Denver. So I just don't trust it. So, but that's just me.
I'll take exception to your Shurmur point, but okay.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you think about it, if we look at the other parts of our division, if we don't get top-notch quarterback play to throw to these weapons that we have, we're going to be sitting at best in 3rd place, probably for a good number of years.
Yeah.
So we need to do something pretty significant, either bringing in a Stafford or doing something with a Watson. But again, I wouldn't want to give up the whole weapon, the cachet of weapons, just because then what's the point of then we're the Texans, no picks and weapons for Watson.
Well, and we can kind of mesh this into going into defense, because I do get your point, Adon, of like not giving up that much, but at the same time, like offensive wise, we don't really need to draft anybody offensive wise. Like we're good. Deep. Well, we don't have to.
No, from a first round pick, I think Mike's talking about.
Yeah,
right?
from a first round pick, we don't have to. But defensive wise, we know we need a linebacker. Potentially, potentially a cornerback, depending. Yeah. I don't think we spend a 1 on corner. That's too high.
No,
but I mean, I get it, like not giving up so much, but at the same time, like we don't need a lot either. So giving up a lot to get a Watson, I could understand from that viewpoint of, well, we're giving up a lot, but we don't really need a lot either.
Yeah.
Offensive wise, at least.
I suppose.
So, all right. So let's dip into the defense, and we'll start. I mean, I pretty much have everybody's name except for like in red, except for like 3, because everybody, either their contract is up or they were like a third stringer. So let's start out with Shelby Harris. I mean, obviously we all want him back, but do you think that Paton's going to resign him?
I'd like to think so. I think that out of everybody on that line this season, outside of his absence through COVID, that he did the best in showing that he should have been given a big contract when he was not signed to a team last year, and he got passed by every single team, and he was offered a 1-year deal to come back with Denver. So while he might not be the greatest defensive player on paper and appealing to other teams, he fits really well in that Vic Fangio scheme, and not just because he can bat a football pretty well in the air, but just because he can be that guy that when you pair him with somebody who can be just as good as him, they can be that defensive terror on the front that we were hoping to see with him and unfortunately Jarrell Casey, who I'm sorry I keep saying this, but I still think that he was a bust in terms of signing. I don't think he lived up to the hype. So I don't see him coming back next season unless he works some really friendly deal with Denver. But I don't even see that happening, because he's going to be paid the big bucks. So I think he's going to fly to another team.
Okay, so I'm torn, because like I like Harris and I love the fact that he always gets his hands on the ball somehow, but I don't know if they're going to be willing to re-sign him at the price that he might want. So if they don't, who's backing up Harris? Is it Walker or is it Jones?
DeMarcus Walker is on the
DeMarcus Walker, yeah.
Jones
is on the other side.
Yeah, Jones.
I mean, do you take a chance on Walker and give him the starting spot over Harris, or do you try to re-sign Harris?
I don't know if I'd put Walker in as starter. I think he's good depth. I think there's options for finding something in the draft or free agency, but I mean I prefer Shelby. I mean he's consistently proven that he's insane in game time. Like he's better at game time decisions than Fangio. Like he just knows how to do it when it needs to get done. So I mean I'll pay for that any day, but I guess at what cost? I don't really know the market value for the defensive end right now. But I don't think he'll ask for top dollar, especially when we're flying him to go see his brand new baby. Give him a private jet to go see his brand new. He might maybe give us a little discount, a little bit discount maybe.
Yeah, not to mention he's probably one of the only defensive linemen who was able to catch the fastest player in the NFL and tackle him. So that was
in his
pretty
first
impressive.
game back.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, in his first game back, the man
He was
went and
hustling.
tackled Chi. Yeah,
That was incredible.
so that was incredible.
rumbling and bumbling.
Yeah,
See,
he's got a brand new baby. He wants to get paid. He wants his money.
And he deserves it.
I'm with
honestly.
Boggins. I say re-sign Shelby. The fact that we have Casey's money is a plus. I'm not saying give him all of that money, but I think that it's a nice benefit to not have $11-12 million that you have allocated to somebody. You can now play with that. And one of the things too is that I saw McManus yesterday was saying that he expects the salary cap actually to go up from the proposed 175 to 188, which is great. And the fact that we rolled over almost 18 million, we're now going to be over 200 to spend on the team. So we do have some of that money to shore up this defense, and we'll certainly get to those other decisions.
Yeah, and that's not even including anybody that we could cut. So yeah. Okay, so next to Harris, we've got Casey and Purcell. Obviously, Purcell's not going anywhere. He just re-signed the contract.
Yeah.
Casey signed the contract for a good amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really do a whole lot. But was that just him getting used to the system and he'll be better next year? Or was he a complete bust and only worked in the Tennessee system and we should go find somebody else?
He got hurt. He didn't have many games.
Well, no, I know, but like before he got hurt, he didn't really do a lot.
No.
And I know it was only like, 2-3 games? But
Tops.
he didn't really do anything.
He had like 3 batted passes or whatnot, but besides that, he didn't get much pressure.
Yeah, didn't.
He
No
was
pressure, no
okay.
sack.
I
So
remember,
that's what I'm saying, like,
before that Titans game, we all were just so geared up, with our predictions that he was just going to have the redemption game of his life and 3 sacks and everything. It didn't amount to anything. But we also have to remember Deshaun Williams at nose tackle also, and how he basically came out of nowhere. So
Yeah, I think he'll get
Purcell and
signed.
Williams, I think, are all set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I agree.
Purcell's the other end, right?
And Najim too.
Harris,
Yeah.
Purcell, and then there's. Okay.
I think we're pretty set at nose.
Yeah.
Do you think they stick with Casey or they go to?
No, I don't think. No, they cut Casey. I mean, you save almost 13 mil. Just him, just a no dead cap at all, just out of here. I mean, there's too many others that you could get for cheaper that would have the same production that he's older in the tooth. He's a great leader though. He brings a lot to the team, and I mean maybe I don't know. I don't think we talk about enough some that we may let hit free agency and then re-sign after the fact, after they're not going to get what they think they're going to get. And Casey might be one of those situations where they let him walk and then maybe bring him back just because he's somewhat familiar with the system, I guess. But
And then they've got
Shelby was a perfect example.
Telvin, Najim, and then who else?
Deshaun Williams.
Deshaun
Yeah,
Williams.
Williams. Okay.
Yeah, he was awesome this year.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go to the trouble spot. This is going to be the big one. Obviously, outside linebacker. We don't know if Vaughn is coming. I'm just going to assume he's coming back.
Yeah, I would too.
He is under contract. Obviously, they're going to want to ask him to redo a contract, and I think he'd be up for it because he's not going to get what he would have in the free agent market after all of this. So I think that he'll redo his contract for a cheaper price. So I do think that Vaughn will come back. And you got obviously Chubb on the other side. You got Alexander Johnson. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. So then the question is, Honey Bear, the slowest player on the team.
He's not going to go anywhere.
Slow. No, but
Gonna...
I mean, is this the point where we see Sternad? Do we do that? Do we try to get a first round, like a linebacker in first round? What are we doing at that other linebacking spot?
I mean, it is one of the couple of spots that the Broncos are favored to go in on. So it's either inside linebacker or cornerback. Like I keep saying, I'm not big on draft prospects. I don't know the players. I only know the ones that everybody talks about leading into the draft, but then after like the third or fourth round, you lost me. So, so I know Michael Parsons has been mentioned a lot. I know Marcus has mentioned. I can't even pronounce the name of the other linebacker.
Really? Wait, for who?
For linebacker, I think.
Notre Dame.
No, for Notre Dame.
Owusu Koromora.
Yeah, thank you. So either one of those.
Okay.
Okay, so okay will be fine. Caleb for cornerback would also be good because the Broncos are more than likely going to move on from AJ Bouye. So if they can get one of those two, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I think there's quite a few options at linebacker that I mean, worst case scenario, we end up with what we had this year at linebacker, which wasn't terrible. I mean, you just gotta. I mean, I expect him to tender Alexander Johnson. Can't say AJ.
He gets angry.
He gets real angry. Josie Jewell was fine, but he's pretty much a younger but lesser Todd Davis.
Yeah.
Where he's not
Run stuff
amazing.
or bad at pass.
Yeah, he's not great in coverage. So like that's kind of what you're looking for now is someone to come in for on coverage. And I mean, Sternad, that's kind of what he was drafted for, but I expected him to be more special teams the first year and kind of produced and maybe gotten a little bit bigger as far as like weight wise, because he's already 6'3", which is great. And he's got he's not as twitchy as you'd like, but he's got some ability to really close sideline to sideline. But I think we're definitely looking at picking up another in the draft. That's been a very popular, not in the first round, because you're just going to get the only one that's really would be worth it where we're at is Micah Parsons, who is very debatable on where he would fit in the system. There's a lot of debate whether or not he's actually going to be a true like middle linebacker or even an edge, an outside linebacker instead. So and he wasn't able to prove it this year by opting out whether or not he was great in coverage or that he'd worked on it.
Who's the other linebacker that's right behind Parsons in draft order?
That's right. There's debates. There's
it's
Zaven,
like the
Collins,
second ranked linebacker.
Owusu would be probably the overall second, but he's a hybrid. He's like your safety linebacker hybrid. Then there's Zaven Collins, Nick Bolton. The one that's really been rising up is Cameron McGrone, but he's looking at, it was like third, fourth round. Now it's looking at maybe second round he's going to go. So that's the one that's the sneaky pick that is really good. But then there's a bunch of free agents too. So obviously Levante David would be a great, but he's a little long in the tooth. But yeah, there's a lot of different options I think they have for that, along with cornerback that they can. And it's not the worst scenario to be in too, because you still have linebackers that got us through this year and weren't total mess, right? So, and with Fangio, you can kind of make things work a little bit, but yeah, I think we're okay. We'll be okay through the during the off season with linebacker with whoever we grab.
I'm totally up in the air on Vaughn. I think that prior to the reports, I really thought that they would, just as we suspected, go to him for maybe a 2-year extension, get that number down a little bit. But depending on the results of what the police come back with, I think if it's anything that we don't want to see, I think he's completely gone. I mean, I can't imagine that they would, even with his legacy, I can't imagine that they would keep him on the team. So that's really that's the wild card, because you not only have that position open, then you have a huge amount of free cash to spend as well. I expect Chubb to have a great season next year, and hopefully Malik Reed continues his path to success. I thought he did a great job, but linebacker, my biggest concern is on covering these tight ends in this division. Those are the ones that we don't seem to be able to handle, and Honey Bear is not the guy.
Well, and that kind of brings me to the safeties, because you've got Simmons, who we all think he's going to get re-signed, except for maybe Rich, but whatever. I don't foresee a scenario where they don't try to re-sign Simmons. I mean, he is one of the top-ranked safeties in the NFL, so I don't see why you get rid of him. Jackson, on the other hand, I could definitely see them cutting. And so then the question is, do they go and get another safety to bring in, or do they possibly move like Will Parks over into Jackson's spot? And then you could then potentially use Will Parks to kind of shadow the tight ends.
It would have to sign him again then, right?
Yeah, but that could potentially be an option that's a lot cheaper than what they're paying Jackson.
Yeah, I think that Denver is going to more than likely fish out at the free agency market, see if there are any good to decent safeties out there that can replace Jackson. Who the GM could trade for a safety if he wanted to, but I don't see that as a likely scenario. But I think it's either they look into free agency to see who's available, or they can kind of maybe get Kareem Jackson on a more team-friendly deal, or he doesn't accept it, and he doesn't. I don't know, but I think that out of those two, they re-sign Justin Simmons, and Jackson is either cut or walks.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of options for safety. I am. Kareem's getting older. We don't need to spend the $11 million to pick up his option, and there's plenty of options on free agency and a decent amount of draft options. Not a
draft.
Huh?
There's a good number in the draft.
Yeah, there's not a ton. There's no real first round safeties, but it's semi deep after that. But I would probably bet on someone to come in and take like a cheaper option, kind of a bridge safety like a McDougal or Keanu Neal, Carl Joseph, Andrew Sendejo, also all a little older. Well, Sendejo's 34. Never mind. But I think kind of like a bridge, and then maybe draft one also that in the probably like 4th, 5th round, maybe that will come in and kind of learn behind, or unless Fangio really likes Trey Marshall, or PJ Locke, but I don't.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I was gonna say, like, looking at CBS Sports, they've got Javon Holland as the highest ranked safety right now out of Oregon.
It's been kind of tossed up between him and Merrig. They call it. I've heard it Merrig.
They've got Hamza Nesarildeen as the number 2 ranked safety.
Yeah. To each their own.
Yeah, Morrick's 3rd. But
go ahead, Mike.
No, go.
I was going to say, hearing Paton talk this week, it doesn't sound like he's eager to get rid of Justin Simmons. So that was music to my ears and really to the ears of everyone not named Richie Rich A, basically, because I think
Honey Bear.
He's watched the show long enough to know that. But Simmons is my number one priority on the defense. Getting him back in place. We need the leadership. You need the steady locker room, the respect. There's so much more he brings to the table than just being one of the top safeties in the NFL. I am totally in favor of cutting Kareem Jackson, getting that money. Parks, I don't know if they're going to re-sign him. I would like to see that. I think he brings a good energy. He's cheap. He left us at a $1.5 million contract last year to go to Philadelphia. And it really wasn't that he was trying to get out of Denver. It was more that he wanted to go home. Right. Mm-hmm. So he could be a nice fill-in as you described. I think we have a lot of options at safety, and we potentially could have, again, just as we did with Casey, we could have a lot of money in the safety backfield too.
Real quick. Glenn, what is the max per year you're okay with for Simmons? I mean, we were looking at 14, 15 at the beginning of the season to pay for him a year? 12, 13. I wouldn't go too much higher than that.
Yeah, I agree.
I was saying 13, 14.
Yeah, I could. I don't think we go with, because what, 14 would make him top 5 in safety salary per year, I think.
And here's the thing: we already paid over 11 on the tag, so it's just a matter of coming up with those extra $2-3 million. It's not that we're all of a sudden finding 14 million out of the cap out of nowhere.
Well, and if we tag him again, he goes to 14, 13.
I think so.
I don't think it's going to come to that.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think he's going to play on another
franchise.
Yeah, another franchise tag, but I don't think he played himself into 14, 15. I think he played himself down to 12, 13.
I mean, the top paid safeties right now are Budda Baker, Eddie Jackson, and Kevin Byard. And I mean, you can make I would argue that Matthew is above majority of those, but yeah, I mean, they're getting 14.75 is Buddha's average per year. So I mean, you're looking at around 14, 15 for Justin Simmons, which I mean, I see him above a majority of these. I mean, that's just how the market is, though. But what's very interesting is Kareem Jackson's also up there. He's like he is 2 behind Justin Simmons, so he as being one of the top paid safeties in the league. So I mean, we'll save a bunch of money there, anyways.
Yeah, and I do kind of agree with what Glenn was saying on leadership, because I would love to have. So let's say we re-sign Harris. You've got that leadership on the defensive line. Von Miller or not, you've got Chubb as the leader veteran on linebackers. Keep Simmons, you've got that veteran leadership on the backfield with the safeties. So then you move into corners. We know Callahan's coming back. He's still under contract. So there's your veteran leadership on the corners. The question is, who comes in with corners after Callahan? I mean, there's obviously Ojemudia. Bassey's going to be back. Then what?
Speaking of leaders, real quick, what's very interesting to think about is like all of our like actual spoken leaders on the defense are pretty much up for being gone this year, which is a problem. So I mean, Justin Simmons, Jackson's very speaks out a lot. Vaughn, you're looking at a lot of guys that are the leaders.
It seems like Shelby was getting into that too, because he was getting
Shelby
on the sidelines.
Yep.
So you want to be depressed?
He's not even one of those ones that's been around as long as Miller and Chubb have on the Broncos, but he was getting in it on the sidelines.
People. Oh, yeah. Christy brings up a good point down here on the comments. Chubb is definitely stepping up for sure. Absolutely.
And honestly, I think this year was a little different because he was trying to make sure that he was fully back from that knee injury. I think next year he's going to be less worried about how his knee's going to react and lean more into that leadership role and leading the defense and things like that.
Yeah. I talked about it when it happened, but when he had his press conference the night he made the Pro Bowl and couldn't stop getting emotional, that showed just a real human element to him, and it made me even like him more. And I think that his teammates really respected that type of, they knew that how hard he worked by himself away from his other teammates, in order to come back and then come back at that type of level. It was I expect big things out of Bradley Chubb next year, of course.
Yeah, I agree, Glenn. I'm with you. And the thing that made his Pro Bowl bid or nomination even better was that he didn't just win it off of his name like Von Miller has over the last couple of years. Because I hate to admit it, but the last 2, maybe 3 years, Von Miller made the Pro Bowl just because his name was Von Miller. But when you have a new face like Bradley Chubb come in and, he didn't have a Von Miller on the opposite side, and he knew that he had to be one of the guys to, pick up the slack, just like Von tried to do last year when Chubb went down. And, some games were great, some games weren't so great, but he was able to always go in there and give it his all. and he totally deserved that Pro Bowl nod.
Yeah. So let's dig back into corners. There's been a debate on which position is going to be more likely to be drafted in the first round. Are we leaning more towards linebacker, leaning more towards corner? Are there any corners that you see that they would bring in to fill any of those cornerback spots? I mean, are there better corners in the draft than there are linebackers as far as like a first or second round pick?
Boggins.
Do we draft a first rounder and pair him with Callahan, or do we do Callahan Ojemudia and draft a corner later to be like that third rotational? Or
I think in a dream world, you have Callahan in the slot because that's what or at nickel because that's what he's best at in the perfect world. And Ojemudia is not. I mean, he's worked slot before, but he's definitely better on the perimeter. And so I think that's what you're really looking for is that Bouye spot that's going to be up for grabs pretty much. And as far as like depth,
and
as far as depth in the draft for cornerbacks, you're looking at a select few, 5, 6 that are good, and then it kind of just goes away, and then you're kind of just digging for crumbs at that point. And then linebackers is a little bit deeper. I feel like you can find just depending on what kind of linebacker. I mean, the term linebacker now is just very broad, so it just depends on what kind of linebacker you're really looking for. But I definitely see them. That would be their number 9 pick if they were to stay there, and they had none of the QBs had fallen. Maybe even if Micah's still there, I might even say that they might grab like a Caleb Farley. I know there's a lot of hype for Patrick Surtain, but I don't think he really fits the system, and he's not. He's very more of a hard press corner, and we don't really run that very much. We do that. We did a little bit towards the end of the year, but Fangio's definitely more press bail, definitely more coverage, and if we've learned anything, he really likes his versatile cornerbacks based on how much he kept trying to push away Bosby, who is, strictly outside, and kept bringing in like Duke Dawson and stuff like that because they're more, versatile or whatnot. So, which I would say Caleb Farley is definitely more of that type, or a JC Horn who is close, but I think Farley would probably be our best bet, who has had some injury concerns, but I don't know. I think they're kind of overblown.
Well, who's the other ex-NFL player's son? Is it Asante Samuel?
Yeah, Asante Samuel
He's
Jr.
a corner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's definitely in top 10 cornerbacks. Arguably, top 5. So he's an option. For sure. I don't know if Fangio though. He'll do something like find an Ojemudia, and they're like, who's that? I think it's Fangio's idea of what will work for his system is not necessarily what everybody else thinks will work for his system.
It's interesting, and just talking about the defense, I pulled up the Broncos depth chart on their official site, and bear in mind it doesn't take into account the suspensions or the injuries and such. But if this doesn't tell you what dire straits we were at the end of the season, the right cornerback is Bosby and Parnell Motley, and then cornerback was Ojemudia and Nate Hairston. So like we are just. So I did want to ask, do you guys know the availability? Will Bassey and will Duke Dawson be healthy for what hopefully will be a training camp, or are they going to be injured into the season? Do you have any idea?
It all depends on what I think they do with Devontae Bosby, because Bosby was just after that Carolina game, he was a huge letdown, man. And I don't even blame him for against the Bills game, because Stephon Diggs, he's a hell of a player. He's he's gonna do what he's gonna do. But after that, the Chargers and the Raiders game, it just seems like I don't know, like he wasn't trying, or if he was playing through an injury, if he got into it with Coach Fangio and he didn't want to be out there. I mean, I don't know what was going on with the man, but if they decide to bring him back, then they might have to reevaluate who they want to keep in terms of depth with Dawson and Bassie. But if I had to guess, they'll probably stick with Bassie depending on how his recovery goes. Maybe cut ties with Dawson and maybe even Bosby again for like the third time.
And I don't believe that Bassie's injury was as bad as Sutton's injury. So I'm pretty confident that Bassie will be back before training camp starts. Duke Dawson's was kind of nasty though. I don't know about Duke Dawson. He might start the season on IR. But I mean, it would be nice to have Ojemudia. I keep wanting to call him Orange Juice. Ojemudia, and then Callahan, and then have Bassie in there starting. That's why I don't think that getting a corner in the first makes any sense. I don't think we need one. I definitely would think second or third round, but I think I would rather concentrate on trying to get a linebacker in the first. That's just my preference.
Yeah,
maybe an offensive tackle. Like say for example, say we jump up and get Sewell. I wouldn't mind that.
I think linebacker trumps cornerback, so
I don't, not at all. I think that especially the value, it's not even close. It's like you have high end cornerbacks, and then you have one linebacker that's up there, and then it just drops off, and there's a huge gap. So you would insane unless you want to trade back. If you want to trade back in the first round to pick up a either a later corner or a later linebacker, sure, but there's no way you're going to be pulling any other linebacker at 9. Well, maybe Owusu, but I just don't know how that he would fit in Fangio's system. He's such a he's kind of like if you guys remember Isaiah Simmons last year, where people just didn't know how to use him. He's kind of like that. He's a small linebacker, big safety. So it's just like a weird situation. If he bulked up, he'd be insane though. That his highlight tape is, watch his highlight tape, and it's just terrifying.
That's Isaiah Simmons from the Cardinals, right?
Yeah. Fortunately, he
Okay.
went to Vance Joseph.
Vance Joseph. So at least Vance Joseph did pretty good work with Buda Baker and eventually turned Simmons around. So I can believe that, Marcus.
Well, they were.
But we also have to think that we're not going to be drafting this high, hopefully, for many years.
Ever again.
So unless we trade somebody and end up
Why
with
are you falling?
So we really do need to make sure not to screw this one up.
Well, and so so in the previous drafts, Elway's been a big proponent of trading back. Do we see Paton following that, or do we see Paton making a splash and moving up? I don't see him moving up, just because I don't know who they'd go after if they went up.
I think he moved up.
Well, I mean, you would think that there would be someone specific they'd be going after if they move up, but who is that?
It'd have to be a quarterback. There's no one else you'd move up for. That's. I mean, Penei Sewell has even been. It might be just smoke right now, but a lot of people are putting Rashawn Slater up there with Penei Sewell, and now they're saying more. Penei could be either tackle or guard, and so could Rashawn Slater. But Rashawn Slater more. Penei was left. I think Rashawn was also left guard or tackle, but they think Rashawn would be more of a guard in the NFL, and they think Penei would be more of a tackle, but would be an insane guard. So it's just kind of like it's kind of wishy-washy right now. But you're not trading up for anybody but a quarterback. Yeah, you're probably trading up
past Cincinnati. Can you?
What?
Where?
Do you see Sewell getting past Cincinnati?
Do we see who getting past Cincinnati? Oh no.
Well,
no.
Yeah, I doubt it, especially with being that high of a draft pick. Other than quarterback, you go offensive line that high.
It'll be
weird. They don't need a quarterback. So
this is a weird year for the top 10. Like the value of the top 10 right now is just like it's funny because we wish so much to be in it, and then after well, at least I did, and then after I'm in it, like I'm just kind of like we might trade back. This is like the value isn't necessarily there for a top 9 pick unless you're getting a quarterback or Micah. I mean, maybe Micah Parsons, who's had off-field issues also. So it's just like you're really gambling at that point. So I don't know.
Well, this draft is weird too, because like there are other drafts that we've had where the top 10 is pretty much set. Like you know who's going where. Whereas this year it's like we don't know if the only one that you know for sure is Trevor Lawrence is going 1. That's it. Other than that, it's who's the second best quarterback? Is it Wilson? Is it Fields? Is it Lance? Is it then you go into the second tier and you got like Mac Jones, you got Kyle Trask, like you don't know who goes where. Even offensive linemen, you don't know who goes where. There's no, I don't think a number 1 or a first round running back. I doubt there's going to be one that goes in the first round. So I mean, there could be, but I doubt it.
Later in the first round,
you think later,
or someone trading up.
Are you talking Najee Harris? Or are you talking?
Be aware of Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams is like a little Frank Gore, and he's just like a quiet little punisher. And he had the most broken tackles in the whole entire CFB. So like, you watch his tape, it's crazy. It's crazy. He's breaking through. He has the most insane balance I've ever seen. It didn't matter who hit him, and he just up. He's like one of those the Russian the things that can't fall over when you push him. That's exactly what he is. I want him.
So if Denver trades back into the first round, who are they aiming for?
Oh,
is it like best position available? Or do they have someone specific in mind? Because I mean, if they have someone specific in mind, you wouldn't think that they would trade back.
It just depends on who fell to wherever they at, or wherever they at. I could speak English, I swear. Wherever they're at, I think the top 3 positions are going to be either cornerback, linebacker, right tackle. I think linebacker and right tackle will probably be more interchangeable as far as like need, but I think I even think Fangio said recently that cornerback is something they're looking at. So like I think cornerback is a big need, but I would definitely take a first round cornerback this year, because I don't think the value extends much deeper after into day 2. Doesn't extend that super deep. So
yeah,
let me ask you this. Are you concerned that in the non-quarterbacks that we're looking at, so like Micah Parsons, Caleb Farley, and Surtain, only one of them played this year? Do you guys have any concerns that we're looking at players that opted out that did not have the experience? Do you think that will hurt their?
Absolutely. I think that's what a lot of GMs are having to go into, especially like poor Paton, who has to come into a new team that has to analyze a team that he's never worked with, and then especially at the quarterback position, and then you have to go and analyze players that just opted out over the so you're kind of going off of old tape, and you like certain players like a Micah Parsons that you wish you would have seen how their coverage ability progressed, and now you can't. So you're just kind of having to go off of what you've heard or seen, and now there's no combine. There's just going to be virtual like meetings and kind of virtual pro day things. It's going to be a very, very, very weird draft. That's why I also think that the value at 9 is not as hot as it could be, because you really don't know what you're looking at with some of these players. So
then if they don't go linebacker in the first, do you think that is a sign that they're wanting to see what they have in Sternad first? Like maybe they do like a sharing out, like you have Josie Jewell on like first down, second down run plays, and then you bring in Sternad, see what he's gotten pass pro.
The value where we are is just not there as far as 9.
Let's not forget that Peyton is going to have both Vic Fangio and John Elway in his left and right ears. So this could very well be the last draft that John Elway has a hand in terms of, even as an advisement type of role, even though he's not GM anymore, because he could be gone after 2021. So we just have, George Payton's draft record from what he had in Minnesota is pretty impressive. Let's not kid ourselves. So I going by what Market says, not having the combine interaction and doing all the things where scouts and whatever can get better understanding of players is really like throwing darts. So, and it's not just the Denver Broncos going in there throwing darts hoping to land a star, whether it's the 9th pick or the 1st pick. So it's going to be a really interesting draft.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of not so much. Well, yeah. So okay, so if we don't do, let's say, linebacker in the draft, is there a linebacker other than say Levante David, who you mentioned, that Denver would be willing to go after in free agency, to where they don't go after a 1st-round linebacker or a corner, since those are the big two?
What about Lattimore? Marcus,
Lattimore?
He'd be expensive. So unless Paton can move some money around or work some magic,
I thought he was saying linebacker.
No, he said
linebacker,
or cornerback. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, quarterback. We're now looking more veteran to back up line.
I mean with Lattimore, with Lattimore, you're looking at giving up your 1st round for him, though. I would more than because you're either going to a toss up with who the unknown, or you're gonna give that 1st-round pick up for a proven player, a 3-time Pro Bowl player, and he's coming into his first. I mean, you'll have to pay him after this next year, but the Saints are almost $100 million in cap trouble this next year.
They're in trouble. How much of that comes? That's after Drew Brees retired, or that was with Drew Brees on the team?
I don't think.
No, that's good. Yeah, they still are going to have a ton. I mean, I think they, with him retiring, they'll still have to. They were semi clever with his
20, right?
Yeah, they said they just re-signed him. And I think they were pretty clever with their, and they had it like where it's breaking down to pretty much about they have to pay him like $5 million a year after he retires for like 4 years or something. It's like a $20 million contract or something like that. So they still have to pay him, but it still equates to it's insane amount of money they're going to have to pay everyone. So, but whether or not that's going to be cutting other older players or shipping off someone like Marshawn Lattimore, I would completely take Marshawn Lattimore, though. He's
definitely
heartbeat. I mean, to get a 24. I mean, it's it's basically like drafting a rookie, but with somebody with that kind of accomplishment. I mean,
that'd be great to see Lattimore and Callahan on opposite ends. Good Lord.
Yep.
All right, so that is going to about cover it for the defense. Now, we've got a couple more minutes, so I kind of want to hit. We completely forgot last week, but who we think is going to win the NFC and AFC division games this weekend. So we've got the Packers and the Bucks, or the Chiefs and the Bills. Now, I think I said in the chat, my prediction is Bills, Packers in the Super Bowl. So I think that's who's going to win out. And that was before Mahomes got hurt.
I think it's going to be Packers for sure. I think that Aaron Rodgers he's got a bone to pick with not just Tom Brady, but the whole Bucs team in particular. And even though Tom Brady is no stranger to playing in cold weather, the frozen tundra is a whole different side of the country than what he's used to playing in New England. Plus, I'm pretty sure that Father Time does not get any friendlier the older you get. So I think that
he's like 87 right now.
Yeah. So, but in the AFC though, I'm kind of torn, to be honest with you, because I don't know what this Mahomes injury is going to lead to. If he does play, is he going to play at 100%? Is there some lingering, issues that we don't know about? How's that toe doing? That he had that's a problem he had even before he went down with the concussion. So I'm going to say that I think it's going to be Bills and Packers Super Bowl.
I'm on board with that.
Yep, same.
Oh, you all suck. No argument, no nothing.
No.
It's so boring. No, I don't know. And I mean, honestly, obviously Chad Henne's not Patrick Mahomes, but he wasn't bad. He came in and played pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
But
he made a couple of clutch plays. That was bad.
I was under the assumption that when you were in concussion protocol, you couldn't practice. Am I wrong on that? because they've had Mahomes taking snaps in practice.
Yeah,
and
but
I
he
thought
still
if
has
you were
to
in
get
concussion
cleared.
protocol,
I don't know if he was taking
Right.
snaps. I know he was going through walkthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
okay.
He was there for
I
walkthroughs.
know you
I
can
don't
do
think.
that. I thought I could have sworn I saw, right there. Mahomes still in protocol. Took majority of snaps at practice.
Yeah,
right
he-
there
yeah,
on
walkthrough.
NFL.com.
He
But
still has to get
walkthrough.
cleared by
No contact.
no contact. So if he does make it to play on Sunday, it'll be a miracle at this point.
Mhm.
I don't know. Don't put it past the NFL to have that.
Don't trust it.
And leave it to Kansas City to try to rush their golden goose out there, and if he's not 100% to further injure him and whatnot. So I don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, that's going to about do it for us. Again, you can catch us live every Thursday, 7 Eastern, 6 Central, 5 Mountain, 4 Pacific. You can catch us live streaming on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. Go ahead and follow us on Twitter at MHRT Podcast. Look up MHRT Podcast on Facebook and give us a follow there. You can also look up MHRT Podcast on YouTube and give us a like and subscribe. Turn on notifications. And again, leave us any comments you have, any questions. We are more than willing to answer any questions, unless it's about Simmons, and then we won't answer those.
Resign.
Resign. All right.
I have a
We wanna
static
thank-
answer for that.
We want to thank everybody for joining us, except for KR. We don't. No, you're not thanked for being in the chat.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right.
Be nice.
Love you, Christy. We will see you guys next week.